Ladies and gentlemen, my name's Paul and in this Game to the Comp video. It is finally happening. Intel and AMD are working together, collaborating to produce chips for mobile. Now this is something that has been, of course, rumoured and speculated upon for months now, but finally official confirmation from both companies and statements. So first of all, we're going to discuss the technology behind this, although there are precious few details, but we'll talk about the ones we have, and then we're going to discuss why both companies are so invested in this actually happening. So what do we have? Well, first of all, most enthusiast mobile PCs, this is according to Intel's own official press statement, are currently around 26mm in height, and this is because they are powered by a discrete graphics chip. Hint, hint, NVIDIA, hint, hint. Now compare this to thin laptops, which are about 16mm or less, and some even just a little thicker than 10. That's not the ideal weight and size ratio that Intel wants to push to customers. In other words, they want customers to upgrade, damn it, and they want them to upgrade to a thin device. The purpose here is quite simple. You have an awful lot of computing power, but in a device which is as thin and power efficient as possible. So, Intel and AMD have collaborated to produce a piece of silicon which has an Intel Core H processor, that's an 8th generation to clarify, some HBM2 memory, which is very important. It actually marks the first time that we're seeing the introduction of a mobile PC to use HBM2, and excuse me, I just slightly caught the mouse there. And finally, an AMD Radeon Technologies Group graphics chip, which is a semi-custom design. Now, from what I can tell, and details are quite sketchy at the moment, it appears it's using some derivative of Vega. How many cores does Vega have? I honestly couldn't tell you. What performance does Vega have? I honestly couldn't tell you. This information is quite light at the moment. However, Chris Walker, who is the Vice President of Client Computing Group, says that the actual chips are going to be much smaller, and in some cases the board footprint will be up to 50% shrunk compared to what it could be if it had a discrete GPU inside of it. Not only that, and this is perhaps one of the more interesting things, is that EMIB, which is basically a bridge which allows all of these different components to function together, is not the only new piece of technology that Intel are employing here. One of the other ones is a power sharing framework. This is tailor-made by Intel. What does it do? Well, details once again are not 100% concrete, and that's me putting it generously, but what is confirmed is that it allows software and drivers, as well as the actual chips themselves, to be managed in terms of power and temperature, as well as power delivery. How does that work? Well, once again, details are a little sketchy. I know I keep saying that, but I don't want you to think that this is all it does, if there might be a lot more to it. But let's say you're running an application which is using more CPU-focused performance. Well, in that case, the GPU would have its clock speeds reduced on the fly, or if it's an application which is more GPU-focused, for example a game, then more performance can go towards the GPU, lower performance to the CPU, and it should, in theory anyway, if it works how it's advertised, also mean that heat is better managed. So rather than the device becoming firmly throttled because the GPU is competing with you know, the heat output, excuse me, of the entire device, when really the important thing here is to keep the GPU clocks as high as possible, well, you get where I'm going with this. And it's very, 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 very interesting, because this level of performance is going to mean that these devices are going to be staggeringly fast. Perhaps the biggest takeaway from all of this, though, if you will, is that it also means that AMD's mindshare is going to be going up. We can certainly mosey over to Steam hardware surveys. And if we were to mosey on over to Steam hardware surveys, which I suspect many of you are intimately familiar with, if you were to look at all video cards, NVIDIA reigns supreme, with 6 cards at the top, all of which are GTX 960s, 1060s, and so on. However, DirectX 12, it's not even a contest. They ruffle stomp their competition, that's NVIDIA and AMD and Intel, with I don't know, way over half a dozen different graphics cards, and these range from the 960 all the way down to the 960M, to the 950M, to the GT 720M. You get the idea. The X11 is a bit different, with a lot of Intel processors, with integrated graphics cards managing to push their way onto the board. And this, of course, is the infamous now Graphics 4000 chips from Intel. But why is it that AMD have a vested interest in this? So there's a lot of reasons. The first, and perhaps the most logical, is they get to sell more chips. But it's certainly not limited to that. It's very easy to say, well, Intel just want to buy these chips, we're going to sell these chips, we get them to make more money, profit with lols. But that's not really the only way to look at this. It's actually a longer term strategy from AMD, at least in my opinion. And you can see it date back from even the Xbox One X and the PlayStation 4 custom chips. Basically, AMD are looking to not only increase the mindshare of the developers, because with GeForce Experience and the GameWorks technology, it's very easy to plug certain effects into games. Now, we can argue all day long about, you know, if you like GameWorks or not, but that's not really the purpose of this video. What is the purpose of this video is, imagine you're a developer and you get to make your games look better without as much effort as what perhaps you could do without. So, okay, that didn't make much sense. So let's say that you're a developer and you're producing a game, and you need to make a PC port of that game, and Nvidia have this technology where all you have to do is basically plug it in, it makes your game look better with minimal coding effort, without a huge amount of extra effort from the perspective of the artists or the developers or the programmers, and it also means your game is going to sell better on the PC, most likely because you've got these additional effects. Now sure, in some instances, those effects may not run properly without an Nvidia GPU, but hey, that doesn't matter because Nvidia have the largest GPU share. The second way to look at this is that Intel and AMD, they don't want Nvidia to just have a run of the gaming marketplace. Now, AMD have been doing their best to fight them on the GPU front, with optimizations which work on the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One largely having a decent impact on PC optimizations, which is, to AMD's credit, a very good move, and it's one of the reasons they didn't probably charge more than what they could have for the chips, which they've provided to Sony and Microsoft respectively. But there's also a lot more to this than gaming. But we'll stick to gaming for just one more point, and that is that gamers themselves, they almost have this, I guess the best way of describing it is just this correlation with GeForce and graphics. GeForce is PC graphics. And I'm not saying all people, all Get PC gamers are like this, all people are like this, but there's an awful lot who are. And I know people in real life who, if they're asking for a graphics card, they don't say what is the best graphics card to buy. They'll just be like, what's the latest Nvidia card, or what's the best Nvidia card for my money, or what's the best GeForce for my money. Or if they do say graphics card, if I happen to say Nvidia, anything other than Nvidia, they're like, no, I want Nvidia. I want Nvidia. Why? Nvidia just better. Why? Because they've got better drivers. No, they don't. Like, they used to, without any question. But if all you're doing is gaming, it's not that much of a difference now. The control panels are pretty much just a wash, to be honest. I would say that if you're doing streaming and stuff, Nvidia do have an advantage without any question. But if all you're doing is plonking in the game, cranking it up to a particular setting and resolution, which takes like 2 minutes now, let's just be honest, it's not that much of a big deal. And I do understand that some people prefer Nvidia, some people prefer AMD, and that's totally down to you, and I'm not trying to change your mind, but I think that now, honestly, Nvidia have had problems with their GPUs, drivers, and, you know, it's caused crashing or whatever. AMD have had problems with their GPUs and causing crashing in games or whatever, but generally, as someone who owns and reviews both graphics cards from both companies, and the same thing, by the way, from CPUs from both companies as well, yeah, both have had problems, and a new driver revision makes the difference. It doesn't typically make a huge difference in the long term. That's my opinion. You may feel differently. But there's another reason behind this as well, and that is that this collaboration could have a deeper meaning. Think of it this way. Let's say that you're a server farm. Let's say HPC. Now, you go up to AMD, and you say to them, you know, thanks for the proposal. Thanks for the proposal with your, you know, with your what was it they were called again? Oh yeah, they were Epic processors. Yeah. Thanks for the proposal, but we're just going to be sticking with Xeon. And by the way, sometimes it's not even the IT guy you're getting through to in these companies. It's the, you know, the technical marketing director who's not really that IT literate, to be honest. I'm not saying in all cases, before you jump down my throat, but in many cases, and I'm sure some of you in the comments will agree here. And AMD are like, but why? And they're just like, well, basically we're just comfortable with Intel. Or it may be a genuine reason, for example, AVX 512 support or whatever. And that's about as far as they can get in the conversation. So AMD then have one of two choices. One, they can say, well, actually, I don't want any money from that company. The second is that, hey, we can at least sell them GPUs. So if this works, AMD and NVIDIA are essentially in level pegging, or are they? Because you've got NVLink, which AMD are probably upset about, yes, and obviously that's something for high-end server devices, but Intel aren't great friends with it either, because obviously that means that their chips aren't getting a look in. What does all of this mean? It means that down the road, I wouldn't be surprised if AMD and Intel collaborate to produce server chips or server-based technology, which would either give you the option of an AMD and a GPU and an Intel CPU, or just AMD. It's totally up to you. The other reason this is beneficial for Intel, and just sticking with Intel for a second, is it solves the sticky licensing problems, the quandary. Of course, they've been licensing their technology previously from NVIDIA, but that has gone about as well as, I don't know, lighting a match when you're soaked in gasoline. Not so well recently. And the two companies haven't really had a bestest buddies relationship with one another for some time, and it's just not getting any better. So my opinion is that this is the start of a technology, basically a relationship which is going to benefit both companies long term. Ultimately, this is a win-win-win, and with all of that said, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this whole situation. Let me know what you think. Take care of yourselves, and bye for now.